Hello, and welcome to another edition of Victory Never Sleeps. Tonight, we got a special episode for you for only the second time. Um, the producer of this fine program is getting in front of the camera. And we're welcoming not just the producer of Victory Never Sleeps, but Folkbuilder Nick Rice. Wears a lot of hats actually within the AFA. He is a man of many talents who we rely on pretty heavily for a lot of different things. He made a little hand gesture to imply just a few talents or just a small amount of talents, but they happen to be the talents that are very often needed. So there's a couple of, a variety of things to talk about tonight. Want to talk a little bit about Sigrheim and how things are going there. For those of you that may not know, Nick is the caretaker of Sigrheim, and he has picked up his life and moved to the closest good-sized town to Sigrheim. And eventually he'll be living on the property. But yeah, he's been a big part of taking care of it in the past year and a quarter or so that we've had it. And that's been much appreciated. So he's got a good feel of the community and of the area and, certainly of the property itself. I'm trying to think if there's any housekeeping things today to go over before we start in earnest. A couple of other things tonight to talk about. Nick is kind of our immediate quick response tech guy on, in this day and age, it seems silly to talk about that because it's such a broad category. And, Nick gets hit with every possible thing that interfaces with a computer in any way. But yeah, he's been great with that. And not to mention he folk builds and he hosts stuff. He gathers folks there in Tennessee for moots at Sigrheim itself, but also in the surrounding area. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Something else that I want to talk about because I don't think that we have in a while, and I wanted to bring it up, and it's not Nick specific. But I wanted to, before we get fully engrossed in things, talk a little bit about our South Africa charitable donations deal that we do. So for those of you that don't know, a couple of things. For those of you that completely and totally just, aren't aware of it or aren't aware of things that have gone on there, there have been a very large number of white farmers in South Africa that have been the victim of displacement from their family ancestral farmlands, from their property, have been the victims of thefts, of assaults, of rapes, of murders. And a lot of that has resulted in folks being displaced. There's an alarming number of white South Africans that find themselves in squatter camps in very desperate situations there. And because of how the current regime there is structured, and in response to the shakeup of what was called apartheid, there's been a backlash against white South Africans to where it's very difficult for them to get employment because of employment quotas that are put in place. It's been very difficult for them to receive charitable funds because, again, so many of those are selectively race-based and they don't have access to a lot of them, and to get like governmental assistance. And that was, getting old, so the years kind of run together. I'm trying to think of how long we've been doing it, but a number of years ago, that was certainly a topic that got talked about a lot more than it has lately. Say a couple of years ago, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And you'll hear about it every now and again, but a lot of our folk were distressed and disheartened about things that we saw with our people over there and situations they found themselves in. And, everybody wonders what we can do about it. And a lot of the talking heads have these huge and not easily accessible plans on what needs to happen, like mass relocations and mass immigrations of people to different countries, and a lot of things that are bigger and geopolitical and stuff we just don't have access to. But the distance between being distressed about it, not knowing what to do, and these grandiose solutions that we don't have any access to make it happen really led to a lot of people not doing anything. And we decided as the AFA that one thing we were unwilling to do was nothing. So we got to do something. So we tried to find local groups to work with that were specifically taking care of white South Africans that found themselves victimized by the current over there and stuff that's going on. And so, not exclusively, but I'd say about 99% of the stuff we've done has been involved in working with the South African Family Relief Project. And they run, I believe, a camp, if not work with multiple camps to get folks back on their feet with jobs, job training, help finding jobs, also with, raising some of their own food, getting back into some of the farming that ancestrally they were doing there and was a source of pride for them. And, aside from just helping take care of their basic needs, one of the big first things that we did, they had a particular need for baby formula. And so we ended up gathering up a bunch of donations for that. As it is now, we gather up funds each quarter, and every quarter we'll make a payout to those folks to their, the best way that it's worked with exchange rates and money transfer and how everything goes is they've got a account at a grocery facility where they can get bulk food for folks. So that's where the money has been going lately. We just did another one of those a few weeks ago, so I figured it was a topic to kind of mention again and bring up in case people don't know it's a thing or are unfamiliar with it. So that's something that we're up to, and we're happy to answer any questions folks might have on it, but I did want to put it out there. As always, we start off our show with a generous donation from Ronald Blake, $100 to help out the Stone family currently running a fundraiser. Thank you very much for that and for all of your generosity. We appreciate it. It's really something special. Thank you. Anybody who wants to donate, we've got the variety of ways to do that in the description of tonight's chat. And there's a little QR thingy that Nick just popped on the deal there. There's other ways to make obnoxious bells and whistles and things. So you're welcome to play with those. We appreciate it. You can also donate over on Entropy if you want to do like super chats. And as always, you can donate at runestone.org at the donate link there to any of the various things we're doing. They're always much appreciated. If you're listening to this show or watching it or both and you like it, you find it interesting, or for whatever reason, maybe you don't, but you still listen. That's fantastic. Please like, share, subscribe, do that wherever you're finding this. honestly, if you want to do us a favor, go into all the different places you can find this show and like it, share, and subscribe in all those places too, such as Odyssey, Entropy, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and VK. That's just for our videos. We've got this done as a podcast, just the audio version of this on Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So it's real convenient. We've also got it on Google, but I think that's going away like this month as a podcasting service. But yeah, help us with those algorithms. Like I said before, I think I may have said it last week. I don't know how to put it. The biggest challenge that is, I guess, the biggest threshold for more growth is that so many people who would be excited to be part of what we're doing don't know that we exist. And in the current climate, with us being who we are and standing for the things we stand for, it's difficult to get our message out there to as many people as we could otherwise. So we rely a lot on you all to help us out by, like I said, sending people our way, sharing this around, getting other folks to listen to it, because the more people that consume this, hopefully the more people will join us and be part of what we're doing. And Ronald comes in again with another $100 for the South Africa Fund. Thank you very much. Can't say how much I genuinely appreciate all you've done. Thank you. That said, Nick, what do you got going on these days?
Well, I got 15 minutes of you talking before I even get to say my first word.
Yes.
So I think that might be a record. But what do I have going on these days? Well, you mentioned a lot of it. A lot of work at Sigrheim, a lot of moots, a lot of tech stuff. I don't think I'd be joking if I said I'd put in twice as many hours for the AFA as I do for my day job. So I really enjoy that. It's a lot. Let's see. This past weekend, well, I had a moot out just north of Nashville. Drove about 2 hours out there, and we had a member out there who doesn't get out of Nashville much with his job. He can't leave frequently. He's on call a lot. So we did something close to him and went to a little German bakery up there that I'd been to before. And then we went and took a tour of a local Civil War fort. Got to see the fort, some cannons, plus a lot of artifacts and such. So that was really cool. And then that was Saturday. And then Sunday, me and a local member who does a lot of work out there at Sigrheim with me, we went out there and I was doing mowing while he was weed eating and such. I didn't make this mistake last year, but for some reason this past weekend I decided to wear shorts while mowing, and I'm white, like white. And well, I think you could have rubbed me in some garlic butter, and I'd have been in a happy place afterwards, red as lobster. But otherwise, it never ends. There's always moots. I decided at the start of this year, last year I held basically a moot every month at Sigrheim, did bloat for whatever the holiday of the month is, and then occasionally held something else. This year, I set it in stone that I was going to, on the 9th of every month, no matter what day it was of the week, we were going to do the remembrance dinner for whatever our hero is for that month. Sometimes it falls during the week. It actually often has so far. But everybody's got to eat supper. So, I mean, it's not too hard to go out to a restaurant. So we've been doing that a lot. And plus all of the same monthly gatherings at Sigrheim. Since I'm here and I got this, I'm just going to do some advertising. If you're in the area, on the 9th of May, we have Elsie Christensen dinner. And then on the 9th of June, we'll be having a remembrance dinner for King of Thanaric. If you remember, the last time I was on here was specifically our episode on King of Thanaric, where I got to talk about him. And then our holidays that we have scheduled so far this on the books. Hexnox coming up in a week and a half here at Sigrheim. And then we have then we have May Day and then Midsummer. And the summer's here, so we're working a lot. The first weekend of every month is going to be officially the work days. But the thing is, there's a secret to that. I'm out there literally every single weekend. So if you can't make it out the first weekend of the month, come on out and we'll do something. We'll probably talk about it throughout the evening. But there's plenty of stuff to do, plenty of stuff on the current list, and then once that's done, the list will never end, because eventually we'll be all living out there and having to keep track of that.
Yeah, there's definitely lots to do out there and lots of help that is needed and appreciated. The summer, it's surprising the difference between the summer and the winter out there as far as growth of underbrush and just growth in general of green stuff is shocking. It absolutely is a jungle come the middle of the summer.
Yeah, and last year we slacked on the late spring and early summer mow, and we didn't do the first mow. Well, technically we didn't do the first mow until August, but in July we had it bush hogged, and that was the first time anything was cut once from the time we bought the property. But now that it was taken care of at the end of last year, and I'm out there at the beginning of this year, it's kind of amazing me because I was up in Illinois and I'm only 4 hours north of here, and I normally didn't start mowing until second weekend of May. I probably could have been out there a week or two ago and started mowing, but this past weekend it wasn't anything hard. The mower's taking care of it just fine. But it's amazing that the grass is growing. The grass is growing good. There's all kinds of, I guess you could say, flowering or budding weeds, dandelions and other things. Lots of clover in that field. It's amazing the transformation from just random field grass, 4 foot tall field grass to actual lawn in just a season.
Yeah, we've got I don't know if you got anything handy or if we've got anything to show folks, but
nope,
people may not be familiar. I know there's probably some cool pictures of stuff out there. Just thinking, I know a lot of the time we assume folks here are very familiar when they might not be. For anybody who doesn't know, Sigrheim is it's about 70 acres. Okay, Sigrheim there's a couple of things. The property itself that we were referring to is about 70 acres. It's in Jackson County, Tennessee. Anybody doesn't know, that's like central Tennessee, very far northern Tennessee, pretty close to the border with Kentucky. It's about a little over an hour, like an hour and a half ish from Nashville. Beautiful place, absolutely amazing spot. Eventually, we'll have a number of AFA families living on the property proper, and eventually we're going to have a Hof to Tier there on top of the ridge. Among other things, we're also going to have a big hall for feasting and celebrating and being kind of the administrative headquarters of the Asatru Folk Assembly. But Sigrheim is bigger than that. There's no way to get all that we want on, one little piece of property there. So the idea is for that to be the center of, for lack of a better term, an AFA village, getting our people closer together. The idea is to get as many AFA members as would like to move to Jackson County, Tennessee, to live as close to the property as you can. And one of the things about moving to that county, those of us out west, I live in Reno, Nevada right now. I live in a county called Washoe County, and it's relatively narrow, but it's half of the length of Nevada. It goes from, just south of me at like the top of Carson City, all the way up to the border with Oregon there. It's really kind of ridiculously shaped. Out west, we've got some really massive counties. Tennessee, they got little tiny counties. If you're in Jackson County, Tennessee, there's no place in that county that's more than 30 minutes away from Sigrheim. And there's some really cool spots on the other side of county lines as far as jobs and other things go. It's a pretty small county. I forget, because I know I've run the numbers before on what the current population of the county is, but it's very small, and that's leads to some cool opportunities. It's a small enough county that we can be a really significant part of that community if we're there, and getting folks picking up and heading out there is the goal. We've got some initial pioneers that have moved to the area to be close, and we appreciate those guys a lot. It takes a lot longer for some of us to divest from where we are and pick up and get out there. But those are plans that are solidly in motion. But yeah, that's Sigrheim, and we've had it since like December of 2022. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in December we closed on it. Nick, how long have you been out there?
Officially almost a year. I paid my deposit on the place I'm living at on May 9th, so almost a year.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I need to find more reason to go out there this year. It bothers me it's been too long. I haven't been out there since we hosted winter nights out there in October. So
yes, sir.
It's been too long. I need to get back out there. Next thing that I know that's going on is we're hosting a national event there. We're doing Sigrheim there, which will be the, from here into perpetuity national event there. And that goes on in July. July is not necessarily seasonally the best time. It's beautiful. It's awesome, but it's very hot. It's very humid.
You'll get used to it.
It'll get a lot easier and a lot nicer once we got the hall out there that's all air conditioned and nice, and that'll change the game on it. But yeah, we're very excited. Anybody that also does not know, Sigrheim means the home of victory, and Sigrblot is victory bloat, and that's when we celebrate it. It's a celebration of how far we've come so far in the reforging of modern Asatru, and I guess it's a place to gather around with that, to build on that, for that to have a central axis for the rest of the things to rotate around, but for that to be the home of the AFA. And we've got other projects and things over the years we want to do there. Looking at some questions we've got. Nick, in the way you see it, Wolf Throne asks, how has Sigrheim grown since its inception? And what are some future plans for Sigrheim? What does that look like from where you're sitting, Nick?
All right. Well, I mean, I wasn't like there, but we heard as folk builders, you made that announcement of the plan to get Sigrheim. So in my mind, it's grown from that, and realistically, it's grown from before that. Like many of us, I had desires for an Asatru community even long before I joined the AFA. So to me, it's grown from just an idea, a dream, to something that is closer and closer to becoming a reality. And then going through the process of us, hearing about the Witten, talking about it, and Witten Young being out there in Tennessee looking for the property, to buying the property, to us taking the first steps on the property in January of last year, to me moving out here, just kind of exploring the land, organizing the bush hogging and getting the other supplies needed for the first Sigrheim, which is like the first thing we did on the land after that, that initial exploration. But now we've had a few events there, bigger events. Now we've had lots of smaller events with me being out there with just 2 or 3 locals. In January, we were lucky enough that we had a amazing couple from Florida drive up. So that was really the first time we'd had somebody actually come out to see it, and that wasn't during one of the big national events. And now we're getting more and more buildings on it. They're all sheds, of course, just small little buildings. But with stuff going on, we get stuff like items, and we have to put it places. So we do have the one member who's been living on the property for about a year now, and she's got her little shed that she lives out of. She's built herself a second shed as like a little workshop. And then actually back in December, I bought a little 8x6 shed that me and another member put up. And that's where we've moved all of the stuff the AFA has kind of just acquired into. So we're getting more and more buildings on it. And that's the process so far. It has been slow, but in the grand scheme of things, but it's been, boots on the ground doing stuff, keeping it alive more or less, and just kind of waiting. I do have the slightest bit of intuition that, once you guys get out here, there might be a little bit more momentum.
Yeah, that's one of the things on this. It is not a quick process. It is painfully slow. And it's painfully slow because so many of us are so excited about it and have so many dreams for it. I'm going to move out there with my family. The Youngs are going to move out there with their family. We have several other AFA families that are going to move out there. Getting families of people in their 40s to plan whatever their career situation is, with finding work in their field, finding jobs, transferring things. If I was single, I'd be out there right now making it happen. It takes a little bit longer. There you go. It takes a little bit longer when you got a family, but it's really important, and that's something that we want to be at the core of what we're building out there. So we've doing a lot of planning behind the scenes as far as building and creating and doing things that way. We've got a number of kind of subtle things to work on. We've got a road, driveway, path thing that we need to be passable by vehicles from the street to the top of the ridge where we want to put the Hoff. It is rough now to where if you've got something that's meant for off-roading, that's 4-wheel drive, if you're artful in how you do it, you can get up there if the season's right. But we need to get that a little bit tightened up. There's a lot of stuff we need to do as far as growth on it. As Nick mentioned, the lady that's living out there right now has, done some stuff as far as those shed structures. Nick's working on shed structure. People that are out there, we've done some of that. We've got the statues of Steve and of Sheila out there and erected, and those are one of the things as far as growth or development out there that's happened in a big way that's AFA wide. Been cleaning it up and reclaiming that field from just overgrown grass and deer habitat. deer and tick habitat into, big lawn area. That's eventually where the housing is going to go and where the Great Hall is going to go. We've also been, one of the things I want to do more is work on the existing graveyard that's there and do some reparations to old graves that were not cared for, and to beautify the space and keep that nice. That's something I really want to put in work on. Last year, just about this time last year, my mother passed away. And at Sigrheim last year, when I went out there, we interred her ashes, and so she is interred out there, and we've got her stone out there in that graveyard. That's most of what we've done. We've worked a little bit on clearing and cutting more on that path roadway thing that goes up there. Again, we've had folks come out and plan and scheme and plot on where we want to put what and just what we want to do. We've talked to some utilities folks about what's feasible with things that are there. But a lot of the big, stuff you'd see or stuff you'd notice it's hard to come by. It takes a little bit longer than I think we'd all like. One of the big things is, we had to strike when the iron was hot as far as getting the place, but it's a very significant investment that we're still working to pay off. And paying off the mortgage on the place is a big priority before we do some of the bigger projects on that. So our current, Nick threw up the current donation thermometer, and as of about a week ago, we're looking at we've paid $44,739.05, which means we still owe $205,260.95. It's a lot, but running this as a side project when what we've been pushing is the payoff of Njordshof so that we can get Freyshof, and this being on the side, we've been able to do a lot in a relatively short amount of time. And again, that's due to y'all's generosity, and we appreciate that. So Wolf Throne asks a follow-up. Would you consider creating more Sigrheim-like villages around the country in the future if Sigrheim is successful? First, yeah, absolutely. The AFA strategy is all of the above and not just one approach. We're going to have people that want to move from all around to come and live at Sigrheim. That's fantastic. We're going to have people that want to stay where they are and maybe build something similar there. Also fantastic. What that looks like right now, if you don't want to move to Tennessee, move close to one of our Hofs. I would love to see the same concept of AFA members living within 30 minutes of one another. I would like to see that happen around each of our Hofs, and that would do wonders to advance just our community, our ability to regularly worship our gods together, all of the things that we want out of life. Anybody, if you can get yourself within half an hour of Brownsville, California, by all means do it. You can get yourself within half an hour of Linden, North Carolina. Do that. If you can get yourself within half an hour drive of Murdoch, Minnesota, go for it. Get there. If you can get within half an hour drive of White Springs, Florida, get there. Those are places I would all love to see something similar to Sigrheim pop up right now around our existing Hofs. That's the short answer on that one. This next one is something that you are ideally positioned to enlighten folks on. Corey asks, can you talk about the county Sigrheim is located in? Population / job opportunities, etc. Nick, you've been living there for almost a year now. What can you tell folks about the area?
All right. Well, I'm going to start with Corey. Hello. Thank you so much for all the work you do at Baldershoff with the food pantry, and I'm super excited. I just saw that it's 10 days from your due date, so that is amazing, and I'm looking forward to that. Seeing you guys up at Freyfaxy. But okay, so Jackson County, Tennessee. Realistically, it's a lot like where I grew up in Southern Illinois. A lot of like teeny tiny little towns, about 1,000 people. You can look at Google or Wikipedia, and it'll tell you certain populations. They lie, or they don't lie. Maybe they exaggerate. The way the county, I don't know if it's the county or if it's Tennessee or what it is. The way they do populations is there's not really anything that's not a town. It doesn't matter how far you are outside of the town, you're part of the town. So, like it says, Whitleyville, which is the town Sigrheim is technically in, is 1,000 people. That's utter and complete bull. Whitleyville itself is a post office, a butcher shop, a Christian church, and like 5 houses. That's it. That's Whitleyville. And a broken down, old, dilapidated ex-volunteer firehouse that, windows are broken out of and all that jazz. Everything else is just fields and farmhouses that are, acres and acres and acres and half a mile, quarter mile, a mile apart. So obviously you're driving a little bit, but it's awesome and I love it. The heart of Jackson County is Gainesboro, which I live just a couple minutes outside of. And it is about 1,000, 1,200, maybe 1,500 people. It's got Dairy Queen. It's got a Mexican restaurant, a pizza joint. It's got a diner, a bunch of mom and pop shops. It's got, the schools, K through 12, a couple gas stations, one red light. So it's a pretty standard small town. And there's like a couple of those surrounding the county, and then a lot of towns of 5 or 10 people, or not 5 or 10 people, but 5 or 10 houses that are just called towns. I don't know, or villages, or whatever they call them, communities. A lot of Dollar Generals. As far as jobs go in the county, it's a rural, it's kind of a pretty poor county. There's not a whole lot as far as great opportunities, I'd imagine. But what it does have is proximity. I know you alluded to it, especially if you're on the south side of the county. Whitleyville's kind of on the north side, but as you said, you're still only 20, 30 minutes from Sigrheim and Whitleyville. You're on the south side of the county, you're 20 minutes from Cookeville, 25 minutes from Cookeville. Even if you're up at Sigrheim, you're only 45 minutes from Cookeville. And Cookeville's 30,000 people. It has anything and everything and all the jobs and all the employment you could ever want. And there's a few other towns like Livingston, and Lebanon's not too terribly far, Mount Juliet. And you're only an hour and a half from Nashville. Some people commute that far on a regular anyway, and they're used to that kind of thing. You're not that far from Nashville. So pretty much anything and everything you can want, just a little bit of a drive. But if you're from a rural area, that's nothing you're not already used to anyway. And I really enjoy it. I would rather be able to go somewhere but not have to be there.
Yeah, what Nick said, there's a couple of other things. So if you want to drive about a half an hour to the northwest, there's another town that's a good sized town, Lafayette, and it's just over the county line. That's also a good place to work. Again, if you can live in Jackson County, keep your money and your voting power and all of that in that county, but work just on the other side of it, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
When we're talking like city center to city center, but it spreads out quite a bit further. Nashville's got a much bigger spread than that. So an hour and a half gets you to downtown Nashville. You can probably get to a lot more on the periphery of Nashville opportunities, closer than an hour and a half. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that way. The county specifically is wired with really good fiber optic internet because a lot of people have moved to the county to do work from home, tech-based stuff. And that's what I would encourage a lot of folks to do, especially I'm going to encourage folks to do that once we get on the property itself. But in the area, I think that gives you a lot of best of both worlds. I know some people, if you are really invested in a particular career, then your dreams for that are going to be a lot more specific. But for folks that are just making a paycheck, there's a lot of different options there to think about. Also, the closest actual town that's a respectable town that we would acknowledge as a town is Gainsborough, which is the county seat. It's not a big town, but it's a nice little town. It's got a Dairy Queen, among some other things. There is a battle between two different pizzerias on what is the preferred pizzeria in the region.
It's not a battle. There's a clear winner.
There's an ongoing discussion on that. There does seem to be one that is reigning supreme. If you're looking for dogs and you don't want to purchase one, there's a lot of options for that in the county.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no animal control or like pound or animal shelter or anything like that in the county. There is like in Jackson County, animal friends of animals or whatever thing that's trying to start one, but it's just, a person trying to start one. And the main county next to us, Cookeville, or Putnam County and Cookeville, they don't allow out of county drop offs. So there's a lot of stray dogs. It's really it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but that means there's a lot of dogs looking for good homes if you can deparasite them. I joke, but only sort of. At our first event, there was a dog wandered out of the woods that, sweet dog, needed some TLC, and that turned out to be kind of a nice success story that way. But yeah, so that's some stuff. We've got some more questions like that coming up. In and around the county, they also have a lot of festivals, like music festivals. There's a place called Boiling Springs, I believe. That's
Red Boiling Springs. Yeah.
Red Boiling Springs. What's it, like 20 minutes away or so?
Yep.
That is kind of a boom town with it's nothing, but then when a concert comes through, it kind of swells, and that happens several times per year. So it's a cool spot. It's really neat. If you haven't been there, I would encourage you to go there and check it out. Check it out when Nick's there. Check it out when we have a national event there.
Check it out when you want to, and I can be there probably.
It's not going anywhere. So, yeah, and it's if you are an AFA member, it is your home too, and we would love to have you go out there and check it out. If you're not an AFA member, why not? You should consider becoming one. You should consider being part of what we're doing, and get yourself down to Jackson County, Tennessee, and let's make some stuff happen. So Jilly asks, okay, is there an Asatru sect in South Africa where the women wear black head coverings? I think you're referring to the picture I posted recently in conjunction with the donation we made. No, as a matter of fact, the folks at that camp are not Asatru. They're just displaced white folks. I think that the head covering wasn't so much that they're women, but that they had long hair and they were preparing food. Saw another one that that organization posted this last week of them, and I think they're all wearing, yellow ones. I don't think there's any significance to the head covering, again, other than they're involved in food preparation, and it's, I think that's probably a compliance with whatever their food serving standards are there. But I think that's what that's about. And like I say, to my knowledge, no one in that camp practices Asatru or doesn't. What I think is significant is when we pool our resources and they all come in from the AFA, they know that Asatru folks are supporting them. And hopefully that plants some seeds where when folks aren't in desperation and their lives even out a little bit, I'd love to see them be part of what we're doing and come home to Asatru. So somebody in the chat notes that there are a lot of false actors currently on Telegram right now, unfortunately, slandering you. They do that, and something that Telegram is a really toxic place. It's a place that a lot of young guys specifically like to go and have conversations. I'm sure some of it is probably good, but it's where a lot of really negative people gather and pool up. I appreciate that you recognize that they are false actors and that it is slander. But if that ever happens and there's any questions, please feel free to ask them and get answers to them. It's unfortunate, but our people, and I'd kind of like to speak to this because it's an unfortunate phenomenon within our folk, especially within some circles that a lot of us find ourselves in. We have a lot of people that have, and this is what I liken it to, and I don't do this to insult anyone, so please don't feel that way. This is just kind of the life experience that I've had, and I think a lot of our young men have seen this. I think our women have seen, say our young men, I think a lot of our men in general have seen this. I think our women have seen it, but maybe they see it in a different lens or in a different way than from my perspective. But, you know, we've all known women that find themselves in abusive relationships. And they say they want out and they don't want to be in that spot. And sometimes you try really hard to help them get out of that spot. That awakens the instinct from some of the best instincts in our men to want to save them and protect them and help them and get them in a better spot. But something internally is broken to where their comfort zone is in a spot where they're being treated poorly. And until whatever is broken within them gets fixed, or until they want to fix it and are committed to fixing it, they always gravitate to that negative thing. And I think we've got a lot of our folk that are so used to losing at life, in the struggle for our people, in a lot of things, that they talk about what they want, but when the reality sets in that it's there, it's very uncomfortable because it is far from where it's outside of their norm. And I think we see this a lot with folks that have had, you know, rough experiences in life. And success sometimes is out of their norm. And so they create, it's like they're always looking for a reason or a justification to break apart or to tear down or to spiral into failure so they can say, aha, I told you so. It was all crap. You know, it's all worthless. It's hard to get our people out of that. I think that's part of the soul sickness that our folk find themselves in. And I really want to help people with that. But a lot of people who don't want to get out of their comfort zone to be successful and build the lives they talk about wanting, unfortunately, that's the biggest force I've seen that have been detrimental to our ability to grow and succeed. I know we get to where we want to think it's other groups of people, or it's the man, or it's, you know, a variety of different folks keeping us down. It's not. I mean, maybe in a macro sense, some of that happens. I'm not ignorant to that. But the biggest detractors from us being successful are our own folk who are socially very broken and don't know how to rise to the challenge of functioning in a healthy society and making stuff work. And unfortunately, that involves it involves being dishonest, because I think the honesty of it is very unflattering. So sometimes they make stuff up or behave very dishonestly. But that's what I think that's about. Nick, which colleges are in Cookeville?
The only one I know of is Texas Tech Golden Eagles.
There's no Texas college.
Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles. I mean, I guess Red Raiders, but that's a little ways away. That wouldn't count. So Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles is a pretty good sized college for, a medium-sized town college. Other ones that are close, Middle Tennessee. I don't remember what their mascot is. I just know it's like a Pegasus-looking thing. Is like 50 minutes away. And just to cover the next question, any art schools or agricultural schools? Luckily, Miss Rachel posted in the chat, there's apparently a York agricultural school about an hour away. And I'll also say in relation to Tennessee Tech, it has a pretty darn large agricultural aspect to it itself. I'm gonna hush up because we got the birthday girl in the picture right now.
No, she's trying to be sneaky. I think she thinks she's sly and nobody can hear her.
Oh no, we heard the birthday girl.
No, my beautiful baby daughter's gonna be 4 years old tomorrow. Hey, Aubrey, you want to say hi to people? Yeah. Get up here. Can you say hi? You wave.
Hi. What's that name? Her name.
Oh, that's Mr. Nick.
Hi.
Hey.
You got all these people that are watching.
What's her name?
Oh, that is your great grandpa.
We have an afternoon here.
Yes, your great grandfather did have a mouth and nose and ears. And eyes. I'm lucky enough, my grandfather, and I don't remember the story of how this came about, but he had occasion to know an artist that needed practice or was doing something making bronze busts. I guess it's not really a bust. It's just basically his head and neck, but it's really cool. And my daughter was just noticing that he, in fact, had facial features.
Eyes and ears and mouth and nose.
All those things.
Yes, sir.
I was looking on a Google search because she asked, there is all the Tennessee Tech stuff. Obviously, there is Genesis Career College. There is Tennessee Bible College. There is Fortis Institute, which I'm no idea what that is. But looked like there was an engineering school for chemical and civil engineering. And I don't know if that's a part of the Tennessee Tech campus or not. There's a lot of different educational opportunities. I know it's a college town, or that's a big part of why it's as big as it is. But I'm not sure what all's offered there, what some of the specialties are.
And I know they have a large agricultural section to it, because just coming in the main road I take to get in Gainesboro grade, we pass quite a few what you would just think is farmhouses or farmland, and they have signs that say Tennessee Tech, so and so College of blah blah blah, or so and so Department of blah, in relation to like agricultural things. So they definitely have lots of that aspect to it, and it makes sense. It's a rural college.
Just looking at the chat room here. Rachel asks, is there a date for Sigrheim yet? Negative. It's in July. Matter of fact, law speaker was asking me about that just the other night. I will get on figuring that out.
Probably
Jillian
the third or fourth weekend. I don't know.
So yeah, we'll work on getting a solid date for that here in the next few days. I'll try to get people on that. I'd like people to know as far out as they can so folks can arrange to travel, because we'd love to see you guys out there. Yeah, I think you and the kids would really, really like it there. It's neat, Jill. So it's a really cool spot. I'm glad you're asking so many questions. I'm glad so many people are asking questions. Getting excited for people to actually move out there and be my future neighbors. Next question we've got up. Can you talk to us about McNallen statues? What motivated you to get them? And can you tell us about the process?
It was a process, that's for sure.
You know, yes and no. So, yeah, I'll talk about that. I mean, all of this is what motivated me to get them in what Steve and his wife Sheila have done by creating the AFA, what Steve has done by his relationship with the All-Father Odin and his reforging of Asatru, and the work that he and Sheila did to create the Asatru Folk Assembly and to tend it for so many years. In a way, it quite literally has changed the world. It's certainly changed the world and changed my life. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. None of us would be, if not for the work that they've put in. And that certainly motivated it. It's something that I've wanted us to have for forever. The means for it seemed out of reach for a long time. But we have been extremely blessed by just blessings from the ICEER, and generosity from our members, from you guys who maybe aren't members but still like to donate to help us do things. It's been very much appreciated. And I started to look around to see what was realistic to get done. So they're both life-size bronze statues, and looking to get that done certainly to get it done domestically looked next to impossible to do at a price point that we were anywhere near being able to achieve. But there's a company out of China that was doing life-size bronze statues of people, and it looked and seemed far too good to be true. But I'm like, all right, let's give it a try. Let's see what we can do here. Let's check it out. They were fantastic to work with. They gave me a ridiculous quote on both of them that was very, very doable, very reasonable, not just for the metal involved, but for the shipping them over and, having an artist custom from a fairly limited amount of photographs do this sculpture and do the work. I'm very, very impressed. They did a really great job. Again, until they were physically here and I saw pictures of somebody I knew touching them, it's all too good to be true. And I reserve a little bit of doubt. I don't want to praise that ice till it's crossed, especially that ice from, a Chinese internet company. But I got to say, their customer service was awesome the entire time. There was this super glamorized studio picture of this Chinese lady who was talking to me that had some name like Elizabeth or Karen or some not her real name. And so I'm pretty sure that that's not what the person looked like I was speaking to and not what they were named. But whoever it was very nice, very communicative the whole way through. If I had questions, wanted to work with me every step of the way on pictures of things and running things by me and doing any kind of redo if there was something I wasn't satisfied with. Only problem was, and this is something I've noticed dealing with Asian business people here and abroad, they want so much to please the consumer and tell you what you want to hear that they're a little bit overly optimistic as far as timelines. So they kept telling me, how soon it would be done, and then that date kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. All in all, they got it done and them shipped over here on site and erected faster than I thought possible. But because they kept telling me earlier deadlines, that made that a little bit challenging. If they would have just told me, hey, it'd take a year. Oh, but wait, guess what? We can get it done in 9 months. I would have been stoked. That would have been awesome. Instead, they're like, we can get it done in like 2 months. Maybe 3. Maybe 5. And they pushed it out. Either way, they're lovely. Process went pretty smooth. They took photographs and dimensions that I told them and were able to really do an amazing job with it. And like I said, they gave me picture updates every step of the way. It was really interesting. I was unaware of like tariffs and taxes and stuff when you have something shipped by boat. It's really interesting because you've got to get like a customs agent you've got to pay some middleman to take care of customs paperwork. And we learned a lot from that process. And Whit and Dan Young helped me with that. I was traveling when some of the nuts and bolts things on the delivery of that had to happen. So he helped me arrange a lot of that. A number of guys stepped up to help out with that. Whit and Svan went out in the middle of Yule, took time away from his family to get those set up so we could, kind of present those as a Yule gift to the McNallans. It was very important to me that was one of the first things that got done, to where we literally build this. We build the home of victory. We build our center around them, around honoring them, around that nod of respect to the people that got us here, and made that a focus of what we built around and built from. So that being kind of the cornerstone of Sigrheim was really important to me.
Yeah, it was an interesting process. The weekend, Svan came down to work. It rained the entire time. So we were out there. It just sprinkled. Like, it was a mist, but it was an all-day mist. So we were wet the entire day. It wasn't super cold, but, it was like 35, 40 degrees. So it was a little chilly when you're wet. And it's interesting now because it's like in the middle of the field, relatively speaking, if you count both fields, right next to the road, like 5 feet from the ditch. So every single person that drives by, if they've never been down that road before, they stop. And to be fair, you'd stop too if you were driving down this random country road and these life-size bronze statues were next to the road. But we've had no issues, no, malcontents or anything like that. It's just been people curious of why there's random statues in the middle of the field. But it's been fun. Conversation piece for sure.
Yeah, so earlier somebody asked, how has the development of Sigrheim gone? Something that can't be overstated is groundwork for interaction with the community has happened. Our people who have been out there either staying or camping or working, or folks at events, or the folks who erected the statues, have had opportunities to have conversations with the neighbors, to build relationships with local folks, to get a feel for the community that we're getting involved in, but also for them to get a feel from us and the difference or similarity between what the media might want to say about us versus who we actually are and what we actually believe. And that's been really productive from what I've heard from folks. We've had some really good people there make some really good connections and really good impressions. And that's vital for, the work we have to do there in the years to come.
It's an interesting process. When
Absolutely.
beginning of last summer, SPLC wrote the article about Sigrheim, docs the location. Best part was they mentioned the white truck driving back and forth all the darn time, and that's fine. But so it went all over the county Facebook groups. There's a couple of them we watched, and it's funny because, you'd see 200 comments on a post talking about us and a very negative post talking about us. But when you actually look at the 250 comments, it's like 5 people saying negative stuff, and the other 100 people just saying, we don't know these people. They just moved here. Give them time to, be people. They don't believe the media type stuff. So by far and away, that's the biggest thing is luckily people don't believe a lot of the trash media, and people want to actually make an opinion about something based on their interaction, seeing it firsthand, actually being there. And I remember right after Sigrblot last year, I came back and I was chatting with my landlord, and I was mentioning that we just had this big thing up at the property, because I'd mentioned we'd had a property up at Whitleyville, and that's where I went a lot. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I had a buddy who was out hunting out over that direction, and he mentioned a whole lot of cars in the field." And from that was like a month after the SPLC article. So I'm like, yeah, even my landlord, he knows. It doesn't matter. People worry, and people worry unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I can't blame people for being concerned when they read articles by media that maybe they've grown up trusting throughout their lives. What is useful is in almost every one of these circumstances, people are challenged to, I guess, realize the amount that the media just lies to folks. The media is not an honest broker and has not been for quite some time, unfortunately. Often we've been victim of some of that, but if it is useful if these people check it out and find out that they've not been given honest information, it helps them every step of the way to unraveling things that they've been told that are untrue, and eventually, hopefully, to come home to Asatru or come home to just a better way of living outside of the woke, degenerate state that our society finds itself in the wolf age. And that's a nice thing. So this one's kind of for both of us. Let's go first on this, Nick. Which countries have you visited, and which countries are on your bucket list to one day visit, and why? Western or non-Western?
Well, I did a little in college. I did a little travel, and I had the opportunity to do a study abroad, and I lived for 3 months in Italy. So adesso parlo italiano perché ho studiato italiano per 3 mesi in Italia. Ma after that, or during that time, I ended up getting, my birthday was while I was over there. So I took a little trip by myself, spent 4 days, 3 days, something like that in Berlin, in Germany. And then came back to Italy. And then technically I landed in France for like a layover, but I don't count that because I didn't leave the airport. So I don't count it. And that's it other than the States. Realistically, where do I want to travel? The rest of Europe. I mean, I don't really have much of a desire to go outside that. just because that's a lot, and that's more than I'm ever going to get to do in my life. So I'll keep it to, the first couple on the list. I had other intentions of going other places. At one point in my life, I got certified to teach English as a second language. And I applied to some jobs in Honduras and Korea, China. I got offered a job in China, declined it. Didn't pay enough, but never ended up using that certification. But so Italy, Germany.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in my life traveling both domestically and abroad. Before I do that, though, Ronald, you're awesome. Ronald also donated 3 coffees to us. Thank you. I am saying that a lot, and I don't think I can really say that enough. Thank you very much for your generosity. Yeah, I've been real fortunate. I was born and raised in Alaska, and as such, your road tripping opportunities are really limited. So if you want to travel, almost all of it involves getting on a plane. Most even small travel is flying from Anchorage to Seattle, and then from there anywhere else you want to go. But no, I got to travel a lot as a kid. Domestically, I've been to Canada. That doesn't really count, but I say that's no insult to Canadians. It's just saying it's really close, and it's between Alaska and the rest of the United States. So I've done that trip a number of times. Been to Mexico. I've been first trip to Europe. I turned between 20 and 21. I can't remember exactly what month I went over. But I went over to England for a short amount of time by myself, kind of exploring. I've been to Ireland a few years after that, which was awesome. I went to New Zealand, which is really cool. Very different. That was a really neat adventure. And with the AFA, I took one trip in, I believe, 2014 with our founder, Steve McNallen, with Sheila McNallen, and a couple of other folks who were involved at the time. And we met up with members in Denmark. So I went over to Denmark. On that trip, we drove down into northern Germany for a while, which was cool. So I got to go to Germany and Denmark. I actually got to be the driver in some of that trip, which was cool. It was neat. I got to drive on the Autobahn over there. I had this Citroen van. It could only go like 135, so that was as fast as I was able to go. That's pedal to the metal, but it was still a lot of fun. It seems like they try to mess with you over there because you think you can just go for great distances at that speed, but it's like they create these choke points that slows everybody way, way, way down, and then you can open back up again. But that was kind of cool. It was more than kind of. It was a really, really cool trip. And then I want to say somewhere like 2018, I took another trip over there with some members of AFA leadership, and we went to meet with our members primarily in Sweden, but we flew into Oslo, Norway. We had some members there. Those folks showed us, around Oslo Fjord and a little bit there as we drove down into one member, Hans, was awesome. We thought we were just getting picked up at the airport and taken down to our hosts who were in Sweden there. But Hans, took us on a little bit of a detour to just show us some cool Norwegian things on the way, which is really neat. It's stuff that I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. So, yeah, we got to see Norway and then parts of Sweden. We were in the southwest of Sweden, and then we got to travel across the southern portion of Sweden over to Stockholm, and then spend some time in Stockholm and go up to Uppsala. And that was really nice. So been fortunate that way. As far as bucket list places, all the rest of Europe, absolutely. I think with things the way they are, though, I would really like to see some more things in, I guess, Central and Eastern Europe. I'd love to go to Prague. I've heard nothing but great things about how beautiful Prague is. But yeah, things over there, Europe, things in the Mediterranean, specifically the European part of the Mediterranean, but other stuff would be cool too. I love to explore and go on adventures. So, if somebody's going to fly me somewhere, I'm not turning it down. But I think if I had if it was up to me, most of my travel would be in Europe. And yeah, but I hope to get out there and do some more traveling. I'm always eager for us to build bigger groups of AFA members places so that I can go visit our membership in spots. I think the next one on that list may be going to Australia at some point to visit our Australian members. That would be a nice thing to do. Daniel asks, can you share with us any advice on getting teens/preteens involved and excited for Asatru? So I think that's not just an Asatru question. I think that's a religion question generally. That's something that all churches find themselves struggling to do is, people in that age group are pulled between a number of things. They're not really settled. They want adventure and to explore and to figure things out. And also that's, the time they're most influenced by, what's cool with the society and the friends they occupy themselves with. I think one of the tricks is building friendships and relationships between children who are involved in Asatru so that they don't find themselves just having friends that have vastly different values than them, but friends that have some commonality and find stuff within the AFA and within Asatru to kind of have as a touchstone while they go out and explore other stuff. But those friendships amongst young people, I think that's a huge part of it. I think giving young people responsibilities and things to do within the AFA is important. Getting them to help with bloat, to help with events, to help with hosting things, to help be part of what's going on. One of the things that we have that's very different than religions that other folks may find themselves in, a point that our founder, Steve McNallen, always liked to make. Asatru is a life-embracing religion, whereas some others, specifically Abrahamic faiths, but also some Eastern faiths, are life-denying. If one of your core values is asceticism and, abstinence from too much fun and too much enjoyment, and too much adventure and too much life, and that life is all bad and everything you want to do as a young man or a young woman is sinful and bad, it forces a separation that we don't have. We obviously don't, just saw my daughter on here a little while ago. I don't think any father does, but I certainly don't want Aubrey, when she's a teenager, to just go buck wild, doing crazy things. But getting the most out of life isn't against our faith. It's a part of our faith. And I think that positions us a little bit better. But like I said, building relationships with other Asatru kids is going to be a key factor in that. And I think getting the children before they become teens and preteens and post-teens and, young 20-somethings to have an actual relationship with the Aesir, to have a spiritual life to where they talk to the gods, to where they go before their altar, to where they participate in our faith in a sincere way that's independent of their parents, to where they're not just an appendage of, yeah, they go to the Hof because you told them to get in the car and they have to do what you say. That's really important. So the more we can make Asatru real to our kids before they get to that point, I think the better chance it has to stick. And also on the off chance that people go astray and they get distracted, and especially at that age, but if that foundation is laid, they have a better likelihood of coming back to it and recognizing that as home base to come back to. Nick, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think one of the major points that you made is finding ways to get them involved and giving them like responsibilities. And I kind of see that, especially here in Tennessee. We have one really awesome teenager who's really active and really involved in a lot of things, specifically her paintings and all of that. And she's done artwork for t-shirts design that we did and everything, and constantly donating and such to our auctions and all of that. And she's a very big part of the kindred out there that they have in Eastern Tennessee with her family and some of the other families out there. And I think she's like the forefront in my mind because I see her the most. But we have others also that I've known that just enjoy.
So she's awesome. I know the young lady that Nick is talking about, and I don't know how much of her, name and personal business folks want us to get out there. So I'll refrain from doing that, only for that reason, because I want to just sing her praises. I can't say enough good about her. An amazing, amazing artist. Like, her stuff is beautiful.
I own 2 of her paintings, so I agree.
Her stuff is amazing, and it's amazing. It's even better every time I see it. But something, and just that is kind of a test case, her being involved helps build relationships with other, girls and young ladies in her age group, to have somebody to be friends with that's a positive influence on them, to keep them anchored in what we're doing. And I've seen that with her specifically, but that goes on wherever we have, teenagers that are taking this seriously and actively involved. That spreads in a way that comes off more authentic than something that their parents are trying to, get them to do. It's something that they see people in their peer group role modeling, and that's really important. Okay, and then the next question from Finn Wraith: would you consider, or would you create such villages in places like Europe too, and other parts of the world like Australia or Canada and other places? Absolutely. I mean, I think that's definitely part of our bigger vision of where we want the AFA to go. Different countries and places are different in their structuring, in their rules on how those kind of things would take shape and go about. I think wherever we have members, we want them to cluster and build around a common place of worship, and in effect be a AFA village, even if that's, a village within a village. I've said this, and I know this is nobody's dream, but sometimes it's people's reality, and it just is what it is. It's not wrong. It'd be cool if a bunch of urban AFA members wanted to all get apartments in the same apartment complex. There's a lot of ways to do this right, and some are closer to what you have in your head than others. Any move you make to be closer to another AFA member and you guys bonding together over our faith, that's a positive thing, regardless of the shape that it ends up taking. And there's a lot of ways to do that right. As far as stuff for us to really get behind, we need that seed, we need that core to establish these things and build them around. And so that we would need to see much more activity from our international members. And we're always trying to build that and looking for ways to get that going. All of the restrictions related to COVID-19 made that, we had some really good momentum on that in Sweden before that. Still working to pick that momentum back up. The lack of traveling and all of the hunkering down inside made things a little bit more difficult during that time, but it is something we want to see. Absolutely.
I think an important thing to note, and you alluded to it, is the coming together in whatever way, shape, or form that takes place. Asatru in and of itself is a community and a folk-based religion. It is inherently better when it's with other people. Two people makes it better than one. A village makes it better than two people, and so on and so forth. That is such a core part of the culture and the beliefs. The structure is through that. A lot of our, the words that we would use are strictly based on that, like Haminga and luck and all of these words that we say, and they're based on really the group and the outlook of the group. So I think in whatever way, shape, or form it does, if it's in a city, if it's in a isolated village, if it's in a village within a village, if it's just in somebody's backyard, but everybody lives within 20-30 minutes of each other and they can show up every weekend, that's amazing.
Yeah, it all counts. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Anything that you're doing that's getting more of our people closer together, building that community it's all a good thing. Our next question, being a townie at heart, is Cookeville decently walkable? What say you, Nick?
Well, as Chris would know, with us meeting, I don't walk much. So for me, no. And just by the way, when I go to Cookeville, generally I want to go to one place and then another place and then another place. And they're all 5 or 10 minutes apart, even by car, or 4 or 5 minutes apart by car. They're a mile or two apart. Sure, if you live in an area, if you pick where you live, you might have 20 or 30 different businesses that you could frequent all within a mile, in one way or another. But then there's going to be hundreds of other businesses that you can't frequent because they're not really within walkable distance or short walkable distance. It's a normal suburban town. It's not meant to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have a dense city center. It's not set up like some of the East Coast towns that are very old that were built around like a trendy city center to where you walk and do all your stuff. It's much more spread out, like a town out west, a little bit that way. What is very walkable is Gainsborough, though. And that's the little town that's close to Sigrheim. That's absolutely, it's got that old town center air part of it that's extremely, extremely walkable. So that's kind of cool if that's what you want. I forget the name of it, but we already scouted out. There's a pretty cool gym in Cookeville that I'm looking forward to going to. Cody adds that there's some surprisingly affordable properties up for sale in Jackson County. I think you will find that is in fact the case. Courtney points out Red Boiling Springs has a few hotels and they are nice. There you go. Okay, so question. As a former member of the AFA twice, due to society and things taught to me, I clung on to but have broken the mold and still find the AFA to be true. Would me and my family be welcome back? So first, the default answer to that is absolutely. We want all of our people to come home. People make choices that we wish they didn't make a lot of the time. We always hate to see members leave for whatever reason it is. And we always are very, very happy and very excited to see former members want to come back. We would love to have you and your family come back. Now, the asterisk is I don't know any detail on maybe why you left. If there's more to the story that I don't know, like that's a thing. So just kind of so everybody knows, and I think this is a good time for just put it out there. There, with anything like this that you put your heart into, and especially that's starting out as grassroots as the AFA is, still in that process. It's a lot of drama, and you get a lot of people and a lot of feelings and a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people that have left on. There's a lot of people that have disappeared over the years that just broke contact. There's a lot of people that left that left amicably and respectfully. There's a lot of people that have left, making a big scene on their way out the door. I can say there's a very small handful of people that we wouldn't let come back. And the reasons why we wouldn't let people come back are very, very few. There any of the reasons that would prevent you from joining in the first place? You have to be a heterosexual white person. You have to practice Asatru or want to practice Asatru. And, the other things are really few and far between. We do try to check and make sure that, any criminal record is not shocking to the conscience and not something that we would consider you to be safe around our families. Anybody that finds themselves as a sex offender wouldn't be welcome back. Other than that, there's not a lot. The other thing is a couple of people, and again, this isn't everybody who's broken bad with us. It's just a couple of people that have done things deliberately to hurt us in a shady way or have threatened to hurt us in a existential fashion. We got to protect ourselves against existential threats to our existence. But outside of those safety concerns, either for the existence of the AFA or worried about sexual predation against kids, other than that, we would love to have all of our members that were once members of the AFA all come home. We want all of our folk to come home. Again, there's a couple of things that prevent that, but not many. People make mistakes, and a lot of us, especially, I will say this: some of our very best members have had crises of faith, have left, thought the grass was greener somewhere else, done some soul searching, figured out that it wasn't, and have come home and turned out to be some of the best people we have. So, I know the answer to your question. Yes, please reapply. We would love to have you guys come home. But to everybody else out there considering it, stuff happens. We've got to be bigger than that. It's not about personal grudges, and it's not about butthurt. We're priests of our gods, and we want to welcome our folk back home to the Church of the Iseer. And that truly is our mission, and that's what we're all about doing. Sorry, just looking at the chat, catching up on some stuff. Appreciate you guys with the happy birthday wishes for my daughter. I don't understand this question. Nick may understand it better. Happy birthday. Also, does this channel have a membership? It has subscribers. It doesn't have any kind of a paid membership. It's not monetized in any way. Is that what he's asking? Do you think, Nick?
Yep, that would be what he's asking. YouTube setup has subscribers, and then if you are monetized, you can have membership and offer them extra perks. Yeah, as you said, YouTube's not monetized. Theoretically, there's nothing stopping us from monetizing other than the unknown and the assumption that is, based in what we've seen due to other people, in that once you monetize, then they start actually putting their nose into people's business more.
When you monetize, you open the door to the censorship on it. And there's a lot of reasons that we would be scared of that just because of the world we live in. But I will say this, YouTube's never given us a hard time on anything we've done. We've never had any problem that way. But it's not even that we do. It's not even about us. I've watched this when, okay, pause. I want to be completely honest. It is, because I think that we would get scrutiny, and there's topics that we talk about that are not politically correct to talk about. But beyond that, I've seen a lot of other people who do have monetized channels. They get their stuff, their videos taken down and pulled, and they get strikes for really surprising things. Like, you can't talk about, like, if you're talking about crimes, you have to say SA, because you aren't supposed to talk about sexual assaults. You can't say murdered or killed. You have to say, like, unalived. There's all these silly hoops that people completely in the mainstream, woke, whatever, people find themselves getting tripped up on, because the whatever the monitoring of that is very, very strict. And so we've kind of avoided doing that. But I appreciate you inquiring. Please do subscribe and like and share and all that stuff, and consume our content for free. If you want to donate, you're welcome to. Better yet, if you want to join the Asatru Folk Assembly, we would love to have you do that. Anybody who is listening to this, likes what we do, is considering joining, you want to go to Runestone, RUNESTONE.org. That's our main website. We also have Hoff sites that you guys can check out, and Nick can post those and whatnot. But anybody who might be listening to this as a podcast, that is our website. Please check it out. And please, if you want to be part of this, we want you to be part of it. And we'd love to see your application.
And I just say randomly, if you are already a member and you just want to, donate more, we could raise your donation level. Or if you really want to do it through some kind of extra website, Buy Us a Coffee offers memberships. And I think maybe Odyssey does too. We're technically monetized on there, even though they use some strange crypto thing.
And so that's the thing too. We do take cryptocurrency. We have a couple of people who donate that way.
I think it's
money's not a comfortable topic. It's not something a lot of people like to talk about. It's certainly not the point of what we do, but it is something that enables us to be successful. It's the reason that we have 4 Hoffs and Sigrheim, all at a relatively humble level of membership. So because of your guys' generosity, we're able to do a lot of things. And sometimes you don't get it if you don't ask for it, but please don't feel like we're trying to shake you down, because we're not. Next question. Were those statues expensive? Yes, absolutely. But they were... I'd say much less than a quarter as expensive as they would be if they were done in the United States by a United States company. Yeah, they were expensive, but they weren't. They were within our range. I don't know why I'm being all cryptic. All in with the shipping and everything for 2 statues, life-size bronze. I think each of them weighed around 400 pounds all in. I think it was just under 10,000. And for that, I think it's a very good price. It's certainly much, much cheaper than we could have gotten domestically. The follow-up is also, do you have we considered having statues of the gods or historical figures? Of course we have. Absolutely. Love statues. I would love to do that. Talking about it, I think for the god statues, if we get those done, we may want to have that done like 1.5 or double life size, something like that, to where it's bigger than like a human life size. But that's absolutely something we've talked about, and maybe in the future we can consider doing. It's a very big investment and not something that we've, are able to do a lot of right now, but it was really important that that we got that done for Steve and Sheila. And we'd like to certainly do more statues in the future. ETA on the merch shop, shirts, etc. So I have been shaking that tree and hounding people this week quite a bit. I should have something very definitive to tell you by the end of the month, or there's different options that we need to do, because it needs to happen and get out there. And if we're not able to do it the way we're currently trying, then we'll try to figure something out. But I think that we should have an answer by the end of the month on getting that up and running, because it's something we've been steadily talking about and we do have plans on. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get that back up and going. So I'm going to switch up these 2 questions, and I'm going to get this one first so we can hear some Nick stuff, because this is definitely a you question, much more than it's a me question. Can you both speak a bit to what is being done to safeguard the software/data of the AFA from potential hackers?
Realistically, I'm not either the person to ask. I can think of a few things, but truly, I don't know enough about that kind of thing to even know if I should talk about that kind of thing. Next time Whitney Erickson, Cliff's on, he'd be the person to ask. Unfortunately, or you can always email him, cerickson@runestone.org, and ask, but I do not know sufficient answers or what I could or should talk about.
So, yeah, short answer is Nick's a lot of our tech front end guy, and Witten Clifford Erickson is our back end guy that deals with that a lot. So stuff certainly is being done. We have no reason to believe that there's ever been a breach of any of our data that way. But it is something that Cliff tries to back up and take care of as best he can from that tech end without making it, within reason. Yeah, because you say from potential hackers, most of the stuff that I'd have to offer on it is more in the physical space. Like our database is private. We don't share that with people outside of leadership. If members want to be involved with other members and network that way, that's an optional thing that they're able to do. And there's boxes on the application that you check that if you want to have that kind of data shared with other people so you guys can get together. If one party does and the other party doesn't, then, like, for example, if you had clicked yes for networking, but the guy that you want to network with hasn't, then I would give him your contact information if he wanted to contact you for you guys to get together. And that's how that would work. But yeah, it's stuff that we protect and stuff legally, talking with our lawyer, law speaker, Alan Turnage, who's also on the Witten. That's not information we give out to any people, any agency, anything outside of AFA leadership that needs that data to do our jobs. And we wouldn't do so unless somehow legally compelled to. And in that scenario, that'd be a very serious conversation we'd be having with our lawyer. We try to safeguard it as best we can, again, with being reasonable. But on the specific technical safeguards, it's not something that we don't care about, but it's just something a little bit outside of Nick and my expertise. It is something that Cliff is very aware of and has been since the start, and has been working pretty steady on securing that and protecting that as best we can. So he may have a better answer, and so that I'll have a better answer next time I'm asked the question, I will ask Cliff to give me kind of a rundown so that I understand that process a little bit better to share with you guys. Now back to a Matt question. Can you travel to Canada easily from Alaska? I don't know post COVID-19 and in the crazy way the world has spiraled lately. But I say that to say this. I'm resisting the urge to yell down the hall to ask Mandy when we moved my mom's stuff out here. So for a time, my mother, before she passed, lived with my wife and I. And in order to do that, I flew up, loaded her things onto a U-Haul, and drove her down. That was a very easy process. The process has been very easy my entire life. Time consuming. The drive from Anchorage to, the closest, place you'd get in Washington State is
She said mid 2018.
Apparently she's on it. So I was going to guess 2018, but cool. So that was right. In 2018, you could do it pretty reasonable. It's a 3-day, 16-hour-a-day driving all day kind of proposition. But the actual crossings were both very, very easy for us, with me as the driver. But again, that was 6 years ago. So I don't know what that looks like. The world's gotten crazier, and COVID-19 stuff made that process more complicated during that time. But yeah, growing up and up to 2018, it was very easy. What we got next here? Okay, I just read the SPLC hit piece that you referenced. Is Sigrheim currently or going to be registered as part of the 501c3 and be property tax free, or what is the status idea on that? Yes, it is and will be. It's owned by the Asatru Folk Assembly, and we are a church. It is church property. When we figure out ownership of space with people living on it, that might look different on how that's broken up when there's people's residences on the property. So excuse me, I gotta sneeze. Apologies. So yeah, so we're looking into that. We've been talking to our lawyer on that, getting figured out the best way to do that. But yeah, the property that is for housing for our priests and that is being used for religious purposes there is absolutely a part of our 501c3 is protected from property taxes on that. And yeah, like I said, once there's other physical property there, we'll have to see exactly how that shapes out. We certainly don't want to do anything legally questionable. That's never something we're interested in. So we're trying to find the best legal ways to structure that right now. But the property itself absolutely is. Thoughts on Ravensfolk? I don't know all of the people that have joined that or are part of that or go to their events. I can say their foundation and the leaders that founded it are very bad people who are dishonest and dishonorable. And I think they're absolutely terrible. It was done in a very shady and underhanded way by people who violated their oaths and have grossly misrepresented the Asatru Folk Assembly, myself, and many people that I care about in things that they know to be dishonest. I really don't have anything nice to say about the Ravensfolk people. What about you, Nick?
The people who founded it or started it, the people that are in charge, hurt me and hurt a lot of people that I care about with a lot of lies, with a lot of stretches of truth, and a lot of, I don't know, just horrible, horrible stuff. Other people that I have seen go that way since then, I just don't know why. And it confuses me so much. The underhanded, shady stuff that's going on from the top hurt a lot of people and doesn't do any good.
I'll say this, there's an honest way to disagree. There's an honest way to leave something and go do something different if it's more to your liking. But to do it through dishonesty and oath breaking and being just bad people is not a auspicious way to found anything that you're trying to do. But again, since their very dramatic exit from the AFA, not really sure what all they're up to. I hear whispers here and there about stuff, and I don't know a ton about it. I do know that it took a certain element within the AFA that was very toxic and removed that element, and I'm thankful for that. I don't like the way it happened, but the group dynamic is a lot healthier and a lot better without some of those elements. So there's that, and I think that's probably a good thing. Do you think it is possible things will get so bad that it will no longer be legal to have a whites-only organization? And what will the AFA do if that happens? So I don't know. I think anything's possible. And I think that the government can decide to do not legal things. I don't think that it will be illegal for a church to base its membership on whatever sincerely held beliefs the church has within the United States. That's fundamental. It's one of the fundamental constitutional guaranteed rights that we have as Americans. But, to answer your question, will it no longer be legal? No, the Constitution says it's always legal. Whether the government will always abide by those rules or not, I don't think anybody can definitively say. What will the AFA do if that happens? That's a bridge that we'll have to cross when we come to it. We try to game out a lot of what ifs because I think it's always a good idea for us to be prepared for things. So shutting down or stopping doing what we're doing or not be the AFA is not the answer. Exactly how to navigate those waters is something that we'll have to deal with as they occur, if they occur. But hopefully that doesn't happen. We see no indication of that happening in that way. Like I said, we are very much within our constitutional protections to practice our faith in the way that we truly believe it ought to be practiced in. And that's what we're doing. And the follow-up comment that I see just after yours by Finn Wraith is a point well taken. Well, I don't think they can stop us fully because they can't stop people from having meetings at their own house or any place they own. And that's the thing. There's a lot of layers there, but those of us who are dedicated to the ICEER will continue to worship the ICEER. If we have to do that in our homes, if we have to do that in a different legal configuration, if we have to, change the nature of how the group is registered, there's a lot of different things depending on how it goes down, but we're going to continue to associate with who we feel is appropriate to associate with for our religious practices. And we're going to continue to honor the ICEER no matter where we find ourselves or what situation we find ourselves in. Okay. Next, here's great answer in reference to coming back. Have you considered having a position below a folk builder as a point of contact for a state? Asking from Colorado. Yes, but we haven't really put a name to that. So hear me, everybody on here. We absolutely want that. We talk about that at least a couple of times per week, or at least I'm involved in conversations about that several times per week. We'd love to have people that may not want to do all of the work that's involved in folk building, but to help us facilitate people getting together in their area. We talked about me and myself and Gothi Trent East were talking about that last night. I think earlier in the day, I was talking to Whitten Daniel Young and his wife Heather about that. Like, it's almost a daily conversation that we're trying to find spots where we don't have folk builders, but where we do have members that would like to, if we help them set up a moot and drive people to it, and they're, like encourage locals to go to it, and, maybe you be the one to show up and host it. It's absolutely something that we want. Nick, do you experience any of that in your folk building efforts?
Realistically, I find most of the states that have active membership have folk builders. And even the attempts that when we do try to do folk stuff outside of those, like if people travel, we have lots of folk builders that will travel a state or two over. Nothing comes of it. Now, if we've missed somebody, I'm thrilled for it. We have all kinds of people. We have, 3 or 4 non-folk builders that help us in various aspects, security, or like running background checks, or doing some tech stuff, or doing art, or doing all the stinking things Mandy does. She's not technically leadership, but she might as well be. She's the, one person we look up to if we're not looking up to you. So there's all kinds of things people can do without being called a folk builder. And I think if we could find a nifty title for it that's cooler than staff, I'm okay with that too.
Well, so that opens stuff up. there's lots of things that the AFA needs help with, and you don't need to be a folk builder to do those things. If you're interested, reach out to your local folk builder or reach out to me personally, and we can try to get you squared away with, something to do. Because there's a lot of ways that you can help us and that you can help the ICER without being a folk builder, and that's cool, and we would welcome it. Biggest thing, I think, in spots, you mentioned Colorado. We'd love to have a guy in Colorado. Love to have a full folk builder, but if not, just somebody that wants to help get people together, we would love that. Love to have that in like Oregon, Hawaii, Australia, Southern California, Massachusetts,
I throw Virginia in there.
Virginia, and we're working on that. Michigan. There's a couple of places that we really need somebody, and those are the ones that come to the top of my mind. But no, we'd love to have help like that anywhere you find yourself, and if it's something you want to do, please reach out. We can try to make it happen. The Wolf Throne asks, Matt, what is your favorite interview that you've done? Personally, I love the T-Jump interview, and I think every Asatruer should watch it. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. It's been a while since I've been interviewed by folks. My favorite was, I did a couple of them, but my favorite was the one with Reverend Jack Ashcraft on what was the name of that show he had? Expedition Truth, I think. It was really, really nice because he was just a great, seemed like a really good guy. He was a good guy every time he dealt with us, respectful guy. And again, he didn't want to talk about racism or whatever woke agenda things to talk about. He wanted to talk about our faith. He wanted to talk about Asatru and the Asatru Folk Assembly. And I love doing that. So there's been a number of interviews that have been good. That one I really, really enjoyed the most. That was my favorite. The T-Jump interview has gotten steadily a lot of people watching it. I think it's gotten a few eyes on it. That's been nice, and I was happy to have the conversation. So yeah, I would absolutely second your, encouraging folks to listen to it. Yeah, that's Nick. Can you think of an interview that I've done that you think was the best or most useful?
Is this where I say I've never watched any of your interviews?
Ouch. How do you even know what Asatru is?
I don't need to listen to you talk to somebody else. I can just go talk to you.
You can, absolutely. I'm just trying to think back on ones. I think, probably the most.
I'd say the one I see the most pop up, like sometimes it'll pop up in my feed, or I just saw it got posted recently by, I guess, Gothi Ashby to one of our other social medias, or maybe somebody was just commenting on it recently. Was the interview, I don't know which one this is, the interview with the atheist dude? I don't know what.
Yeah, that's the T-Jump one.
Okay, that's the T-Jump one. Yeah, it had some comments. It actually had some comments recently on Odyssey, VK, Rumble, one of those sites. Cool. People basically just saying it was a great interview.
Awesome. I'm glad folks liked it.
I did see. I saw parts of your actual last interview, that I believe was your last interview, the Desert Heathen one. That was an interesting one, just because of, I didn't keep up with him after the fact, but I know like the opinions that he thought he had beforehand versus the opinions he at least said he had during the interview. Because I watched part of it. You kind of, I don't know, you made him. He at least acted like you made him shift his view on us by a little bit. I don't know how well it stuck, but that was an interesting one. Just because you did an interview with somebody that had like 500 or like very few followers, and it was an interesting interview.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've done a lot of different interviews with a lot of different kind of folks from different backgrounds and different. One that was really cool that never aired, or if it did, I could never figure out where it was with this young couple in Moscow that wanted to do an interview with me. And I was up, super late one night because the time difference, but that was just really nice to talk to them about, Asatru and what it was like there versus what it's like here and some different things. So that was kind of an interesting one. I don't think it was, necessarily interesting for the listener, but it was really interesting for me and for those folks. So I hope it was interesting for them. One of the, some of the most impactful interviews I've done have been not what I've said, but what I haven't said, that they think that I'm gonna they think I'm gonna say something ridiculous, or that we're gonna come off in a certain way, and we haven't. Like, they're looking for strange gotcha material that they didn't get. I think that's, the best is on that Guardian piece. They interviewed me for forever, and I was on there for seconds. So I think they didn't get what they were looking for. And the lack of interview there, I think, was probably one of the more helpful ones to us. Next question is, has any AFA building ever been vandalized? So that's an odd question, because I don't think in the way that you might think or worry that it has been by so okay, the one time someone broke into Thorshof, they broke a window and went in and stole a horn that we had. And we have theories about who that might have been. We've got security systems up in all of the Hofs now to help us better understand that. But that was a one-off incident. And then we also had a string of a couple instances at Odenshof when it first opened. And they weren't vandalism as much as they were people we had a couple of break-ins through a broken window. And so I can't say who did that, but I can say this. They stole a pork loin and they stole some smoked oysters. So it wasn't really vandalism. They stole, like I said, some cans of smoked oysters and a pork loin. Those break-in alerts we got from Odenshof, that community is a economically impoverished community there, and there's a lot of methamphetamine use there. There was a squatter meth camp a few lots away from us that was consistently problematic. We had a really big rain at one point, and it kind of washed the squatter meth camp away. And since that happened, and coinciding with when that happened, any of those problems stopped happening. So that's the worst we've had. So we've been very fortunate that way. So
I will make one comment in that I am, ever since Winter Nights, I'm missing a 10x10 pop-up tent. I can do nothing but blame it on the Landvites. They took it off somewhere. I have no reason to suspect it was any vandalism, but it's missing. I don't know where I put it. The tent that we put over the kitchen.
Mhm.
Nobody took it. I don't know where it's at. I don't know.
Fair enough. I don't know where. Oh, okay. Now I see it. So S is in North Texas. He says Shay McCurdy left the AFA for Ravensfolk. It's actually not true. Shay was removed from the AFA a number of months before Ravensfolk started. But he covered an area kind of in North Texas. Texas is interesting because it is it's a big area. So some folk builders may not be in Texas, but may be closer to you than folk builders who are in Texas. Nick answered that Patrick Wynn is our Texas folk builder right now at present. And he is in I think he'd be closer to the Shea area that was covered by him. He's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's the closest you've got in North Texas. I was going to say, if you're in like the Amarillo area, you're kind of out there in the middle of nowhere. I still think Patrick is your closest that you've got. So yeah, Patrick Wynn is who I'd reach out to. Yeah, and that's PWYNNE@runestone.org for anybody, any Texans that may be listening to this on a podcast version. Sorry, guys, just looking at the chat, trying to keep up with what we got and where we're at. Yeah, Chris says he's been receiving messages from Joe Drodos. Is he still one of our folk builders? I was given the impression that he wasn't. You were mistaken. He is absolutely still one of our folk builders. He is out of Eastern Ohio. I don't know if you'd call it Northeastern Ohio, says
I would just say northern. I think it's kind of north central. Whatever that big town is up there, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Joe's still folk building and doing good for us. I don't know if somebody was maybe confused. Oh, it's absolutely up north. Anyways, yes, looking at a map, I'm sorry, my Ohio geography is not what it perhaps could be. But yeah, he's in northeastern Ohio. Yeah, Joe's a good guy, and he's still very much folk building with us. Nick, do you have any thoughts you'd like to leave folks with this evening?
Well, we got 2 more questions if you don't want to skip them.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, we do.
Not on my end. Not where my producer sent them to me.
Well, I haven't sent you any of the questions tonight.
No, you have not.
Go to comments and click start.
What? That's not where we put them. We put them in private.
That's where I put them all night. You hush your mouth.
Maybe that's why I haven't seen them show up. All right.
Well, you've been doing good.
This bickering does not occur when Nick is behind the camera. Only when he's in front of the camera.
Oh, I run my mouth the entire time I'm behind the camera too.
Oh, I bet. They just can't. These people just aren't treated to it. Hold on one sec. Hey, baby. You going to bed? Come out.
I love you, sweetheart. Sleep good.
I need that.
All right. Looks like we do have 2 questions. Matt and Nick, are you familiar with the concept of non-duality? And do you have any thoughts on it? Nick, are you familiar with that concept? And do you have thoughts?
I am, as of the asking of this question. I Googled it. It's apparently based on some Sanskrit word that means not to, and it's basically just that everything is connected, and the cosmos and the individual are one. And I tend to focus on Asatru and not on the rest of philosophy and spirituality. But as a general thing, just the interconnectedness of everything, I don't disagree from a grand overarching view. Things are connected, things cycle, cause and effect, karmic relation, or what you put into it comes out. Weird things happen.
Yeah, so the reason I threw it to Nick first is so I could Google it. Even Google makes it very nebulous and non-specific and talks about how there's lots of different ways. So there may be a really particular version of it that you're referring to. After looking at what the thing says, I am familiar with that concept of, all things being part of God or whatever. There's always a lot of connectedness to things. Asatru is a holistic faith to where all parts of our life and our relationships should synergize and be connected to one another in that way. But to the point of non-individuality, which I don't know if you're suggesting or not, I don't think that's legitimate. I think that's ridiculous. I think there's a lot of ways to obfuscate moral responsibility by claiming connectedness with things. We very much are opposed to concepts of equality, and we're very much opposed to the idea of universal sameness. And I think that my understanding of non-duality is making everything a gray-brown mass of non-distinction. We celebrate difference. We celebrate distinction. We celebrate individuality. And our individuality is what gives us value and allows us to grant value to others. It's what makes, if I'm God and Nick's God and God's God and the table's God, then nothing really makes a lot of sense. If we have gods, the I seer, Nick is Nick, I'm me, and the table's the table, then Nick and I can engage in gift cycles with the I seer, and one sentient being is able to interact with another sentience in a meaningful relationship. If we're all just the same, it kind of takes away the point of a lot of living. So much of what separates Asatru from Eastern faiths, even Eastern faiths that distantly trace their roots back to a similar source, we don't want to become one with all of the things. We want to maintain our identity and maintain our individual self while participating as a willful participant in life, in the cosmos, in those things. When everything is just the same and there's no distinction, it takes away all of the individual agency when carried to its extreme. And individual agency is what makes us noble. It's what makes us Aryan people. So that's my takeaway on that. So just received the Study Have 'Em All by Carrie Overton. How does the AFA rate this for studying the words of Odin? I don't know. I have not read that. I had no idea that Carrie Overton put out that book. Nick, are you aware of it? And do you have thoughts on it?
I have heard of her and maybe it, but I have not read it either. Unfortunately, there are way too many books in the day. There are way too many books out there for any of us to read them all. And we have I don't know. If you want to study the Havamal, there's a 7-episode VNS thing all about studying the Havamal, breaking it down stanza by stanza. That's where I focus.
Yeah, I don't think I can really speak intelligently on it. I've met Carrie Overton. She used to be involved with us many years ago. I have no idea how good or not good that material might be. I also have not heard anybody, I haven't heard any feedback or any word on the street about it either. And the next question, is there any Asatru philosophy? This is something that has always been a personal, I think pet peeve cheapens it more than it is. What does that mean? And that's a real question. What is everything has a philosophy to it in its most basic sense. Every person who contemplates life on a deeper level is a philosopher, but there's obviously people we refer to as philosophers and others we don't. So I don't really know what counts. There's absolutely an Asatru worldview. There's absolutely an approach to understanding our existence, our relationships to one another, and our relationships to the gods. I don't know exactly what we're looking for with the question and the best way to answer it. I think that Asatru philosophy, or the AFA philosophy specifically, has been I've tried to express it as best I can over the past 93 episodes and will continue to do so. But other than that, I'm not sure what we're looking for with the question. I don't mean to dodge it, but there's absolutely a way of viewing the world, and we've, gone over that and will continue to. The next question I see is, what advice would you give to someone who lives in a racially diverse place like Baltimore, where non-whites are the majority, crime is rampant, and moving isn't a viable option? Nick, what do you say to that?
I mean, to be fair, I stop it at, why is moving not a viable option? If it's not a viable option, take steps to make it a viable option if you want to leave. If you don't want to leave, then embrace living where you're living. I don't see much of an issue. sure, if you live in some ghetto, violent part of town, then move to another part of town. You said you couldn't leave Baltimore, but that's, to me, everything's by choice. It's by choice. I don't understand the concept of it's not a viable option simply because I made the choice that doesn't make any sense because it was the best thing for me. And there's always a reason. If you want to leave, if you don't, then find friends, find community, build community, ask questions, talk to the people in your community that you can relate to and get along with on some level, and be a beacon of light so that the good people that are still there can interact with you.
So Nick, of course he lives in the ghetto. He says he lives in Baltimore. I don't think there's non-ghetto Baltimore. At least that's not the impression I have been given.
I don't know.
So, okay, I will. Two things. Yes, I will join the Nick bandwagon and scold you. You can absolutely move. Money may be hard. Pick up everything you own, throw it on your back, and start hitchhiking until you get to Jackson County, Tennessee. But assuming that's not something that's within your realm of what you want to do, I think that getting together with other people like yourself, and this is going to seem self-serving, but it is what it is. Get together with them, join the AFA, be part of what we're doing, interact with us from distance, host AFA gatherings to get more people who share commonality with you and with us, and build what you want within the sphere that you have access to. I mentioned earlier, we talk about these AFA communities and getting swaths of land in, idyllic places. It's also the right way to do it, to get with you and a couple other friends and get a joint, get apartments in the same apartment complex. Shoot, if money's that tough, go in together with other AFA members that find themselves in the spot that you're in Baltimore, and get someplace that's a little bit nicer and share it with them. Throw in and, go 3 people renting a place and get someplace a little bit nicer if you want to, or you need to change your circumstance. One thing that I found is there's obvious benefits to living in places with more people like yourself, certainly with less crime, that don't have the same demographic concerns that you're experiencing. But those people don't have the same experience you have, and often are not inclined to be ideologically where you're at. Other people who have your same life experience are very primed to be ideologically similar to you. They know about where they live and the crime and the problems and the things that they don't like versus the things that they do. I think it's a very fertile place for you to find people similar to yourself, bring them home, and build the world you want within the shell of what you have. Get together with those people, host stuff at your house, go to a park, go in the woods, do stuff in your, apartment complex. Find places that are not particularly criminal and spend time there. Hang out with each other, walk each other's wives and girlfriends and daughters to and from places if you're worried about the criminality. There is security and warmth and community in numbers and in gathering together with others who share the values in life that you share. Do that where you're at. And if it involves bringing folks home to the AFA, we would love to help you in that process. Shoot, if you just want ideas or whatever, we're happy to try to help you work your way through that process if that's where you find yourself and where you are planning on building your immediate future at. Absolutely, as Mike said at the bottom, when you look around for a hero and one isn't readily available, you have to become the hero. Absolutely, go do that. But it all starts with somebody wanting to bring people together. And if you're the one there and you notice it's the thing you want to do, let's make it happen. That's where we're at. Nick, do you have any thoughts you want to leave people with?
Well, I guess you don't want to answer the other question that's there.
Okay, because I don't use the star thing. We use private chat. Get on board. All right. No, I do actually want to answer this question. I saw it when it came up, and I think it's a really good question. Could you touch on the AFA being pan-Aryan? Why we worship the gods as they were known in Scandinavia? I know it can be confusing for those new to the AFA. Good question. So any Aryan people have a common root and a common gods to us. Those gods have been with us since our creation. Those gods have existed with us throughout our existence and are there now participating in the gift cycle with us, assuming that you are part of that gift cycle. Any logical tracing of our gods, either through myth or through linguistics or through whatever pathway you want, clearly when language changes, a random new set of gods that are very similar to the old gods but all have different names doesn't pop into existence. It's not how things work. So our gods go back and are reflections or points of view of our common ancient gods that have always been with our people. We could be lost forever in an endless what if we decide, well, should we use the German names or the Anglo-Saxon names, or should we do Slavic things or Greco-Roman or Etruscan things or. So we want to be unified in what we do, worshiping our gods, the Aesir, under the names and the stories and the context given us by the Norse sources, unifies our verbiage. It unifies how we relate to the gods. It unites us as a folk to where when we stand together and worship our gods, we all have a similar perspective on who these gods are and on how we relate to them. The Norse sources, I would say, are the least contaminated that have made their way to us. They're the most complete of certainly the Germanic expression of our faith. And we want to be consistent in doing that. And a point that I think is not without merit, it's through this Norse nomenclature and context that the gods initiated the rebirth of our faith. It is as Odin, the all-father of the Norse pantheon, that Stephen McNallen was awakened, that his soul was brought to reforge Asatru back in 1968. It was under that context that this is here today. And we honor that by using the Norse names for the gods, using the Norse corpus of lore as our primary focus and our primary source. Again, it's really important that we do things in a structured, unified way to where when people come in, they know who we are and what we do. They don't have to wonder, well, how come this guy is saying Thor, but this other guy's saying Thunor, and this guy over here is talking about Perun, and it's very confusing. We don't want confusion. We want clarity of will, clarity of intention, clarity of purpose, and clarity in our worship together. And doing that through the Norse context and nomenclature, we're able to do that the most effectively. And that's why we do that. Do you have any thoughts to add on that, Nick?
Realistically, you hit a lot of the main points that I was thinking. In the survival of the lore, the fact that it was through Odin that working through Elder McNallen. But I think an important thing here is the 10th noble virtue, victory, and our Aryan concept of doing an action and getting stuff done and making accomplishments. No other aspect of, or no other, resurgence of the of an Aryan faith has actually accomplished anything that competes with the amount that the Asatru flavor has. And even outside the AFA, there's the number of organizations, the number of people that claim to be Asatru, even if they're backwards as all get out about it, they at least think they're Asatru. So it's something trying. They have a long way from coming home, some of them, but they're trying in their own way, maybe. So it accomplishes something, and it is accomplishing things. So, I mean, I think that is an important thing to consider. And as you said, as part of, I said it earlier tonight, Asatru is about community. Our ancestors, our faith, our culture is about the community together and the cohesion and the interconnectedness of that and the dependability that we have on each other. And if we're all on the same page, then it just functions that much better.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important to be united in what we do. It's not an individual thing, it's a community thing. And we're definitely stronger when we do this together. And the impact towards victory, the recognition of our gods, and building something for our future is done best when we do it together. All right, well, that's what we got for you tonight. It's been nice to get to not just talk in your presence, but actually talk with you and talk to you on here tonight, Nick. It's been great having you. I appreciate all you do to make these things happen. Nick is the only person that has been actively engaged in all 93 of our episodes so far. Yeah, without him, this doesn't happen or looks really, really different, or certainly happens less good. So we appreciate all you do, Nick. And I appreciate you guys being here in the chat and coming with your questions. It's great to talk to you guys each and every week. Next week, Witten Svan will return, and he and I will discuss the Grimnismal. And until then, hail the Aesir, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.